We're often told that history is the story of great men, of emperors in purple robes, of senators debating in grand forums, and of generals leading triumphant legions across conquered lands. We see the towering arches, the magnificent Colosseum, the sprawling palaces on the Palatine Hill, and we think we know Rome. But that is only a sliver of the story, the part that was carved in stone to be remembered. Tonight, we are not interested in that Rome. We are going to leave the marbled halls and the cheering crowds behind. Instead, we are going to wander into the quiet, overlooked corners of the past. We are going to listen for the whispers in the shadows, for the stories of the millions of people whose lives were not recorded in victory columns or epic poems, but were lived one grueling day at a time in the narrow, noisy, and often desperate streets of the ancient world. We're going to explore the history that was felt, not just the history that was written. If this kind of calm, slow history helps you unwind, feel free to like the video and subscribe, but only if it genuinely brings you peace. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is right now. It's always strangely comforting to see who's out there falling asleep to the same quiet story. A small community of souls finding rest in the same shared moment. So dim, the lights. Turn on a fan if you like, that soft background hum. Settle in, get comfortable, and let's begin. Let's travel back, not to the Rome of emperors, but to the Rome of the Romans. You are here, not in the Rome of postcards, but in the real Rome. The year is unimportant for your purposes. Let us say it is the reign of Trajan, a time of supposed peace and prosperity. But for you, living in the dense heart of the Subura, the city's teeming, forgotten gut, peace is a distant concept, and prosperity is a word spoken by others. Your world is a canyon carved from brick and timber. The buildings, the great insulate, or island blocks rise around you, 6, 7, even 8 stories high, leaning towards each other as if sharing a terrible secret. They are so tall and so close together that the sun is a fleeting visitor to your street. For most of the day, a permanent, weary twilight reigns. The light that does reach you is not clean or golden, but thick and hazy, filtered through a constant pall of smoke. The air itself has a weight, a texture. It is a cocktail of smells, a relentless assault on your senses. First, the smoke thousands of open cooking fires, the workshops of smiths and bakers, the funeral pyres outside the city walls, all contribute to a perpetual, stinging haze that catches in the back of your throat. Underneath the smoke is the smell of humanity packed tight and sweating, the unwashed bodies of your neighbors, the sharp, acidic temps of urine that pools in the gutters, the sour stench of refuse tossed from the windows above. There is the smell of food, but not pleasant food. It is the smell of coarse grains boiling into a gluey porridge of cheap, garlicky sausages frying in rancid oil, of fish that has sat in the sun a little too long. From the tanneries down the lane comes the chemical bite of lye and the gag-inducing odor of curing hides. The fullers, the city's launderers, have their shops nearby, and the overwhelming ammonia scent from the giant clay pots of stale urine they use for cleaning is a constant, nauseating presence. You don't notice it most of the time. It is simply the air you breathe. It is the smell of home. Now listen. The silence you crave, the peace that might allow for a moment's thought, does not exist here. Rome is a symphony of noise, and it never ends. Before the first hint of dawn, you hear the rumble of carts. The law forbids wheeled traffic in the city during the day to ease congestion. So the night is filled with the clatter of iron-shod wheels on stone, the cracking of whips, the shouts of drivers urging their mules through the narrow, twisting alleys. Their curses are the city's alarm clock. As the sun rises, the carts fade, and a new cacophony begins. The clang of a blacksmith's hammer on an anvil, a rhythmic punishing sound that provides the bass line for your day. The high-pitched whine of a saw from a carpenter's workshop. The rhythmic thumping from the fullers beating wet cloth with mallets. And then there are the voices. Hawkers cry their wares from every corner. Hot sausages, fresh water, figs from Syria. Their voices are hoarse, desperate, trained to cut through the din. School children, huddled under a lean-to across the way, chant their lessons in a monotonous, sing-song drone. In the apartment next to yours, a baby is crying, a thin, reedy wail that never seems to stop. From the floor above, you hear the familiar sounds of a violent argument, shouts, a crash, then weeping. It happens every other day. You have learned to tune it out. All of this blends into a single, unceasing roar, the sound of a million lives lived in too small a space. It is a sound that presses in on you, that seeps into your bones. Feel the ground beneath your feet. The street is not paved with grand, perfectly fitted stones like the Via Sacra. Here, the ground is a treacherous mess of packed earth, loose cobblestones, and slick, foul-smelling mud. You are always looking down, watching your step to avoid a loose stone that could turn your ankle, or a puddle of stagnant, greasy water that will soak through the thin leather of your sandals. The street is a communal dumping ground. You step over a pile of rotting vegetable peels, the gnawed-at bones of a chicken, a heap of oyster shells. A dead cat lies in the gutter, its body swollen and crawling with flies. It will simply decay, becoming part of the fabric of the street. The boundaries of your world are suffocatingly close. You can see the top of the Capitoline Hill from certain corners, a distant, mocking vision of marble and order. But your world is this street, this labyrinth of alleys, this vertical slum. You might spend your entire life within a few square blocks. The idea of a wide open field, of a silent forest, of a clean, windswept plain is a fantasy. You feel the city's claustrophobia in your chest, a constant, low-grade pressure. This is your environment. It is not a backdrop for your life. It is an active participant, shaping every moment, every breath. It is a world that is always too close, too loud, too dirty. It is a world that demands everything from you and promises nothing in return. You are a single nerve ending in the city's massive, overstimulated body, and there is no escape. You are here. This is your shelter. Do not think of a house or even an apartment in the modern sense. You live on the 5th floor of an insula, one of the countless tenement blocks crammed into this part of the city. The word insula means island, and you feel utterly adrift in it, a speck in a sea of humanity. The journey to your home is the first challenge of the day. There is no grand entrance, only a dark, narrow doorway leading from the street into a cramped, foul-smelling courtyard. From there, you begin the climb. The stairs are steep and treacherous, made of worn wood that groans and sags under your weight. In the darkness of the stairwell, you guide yourself by running a hand along the rough, damp brick wall. The higher you go, the more the building seems to decay. The first 2 floors are built of crude brick and stone, but your level and the ones above it are made of a cheaper, more perilous mixture of timber, wattle, and daub. The construction is flimsy, a tinderbox waiting for a spark, a fragile container for hundreds of lives. You reach your door. It is simple, rough-hewn planks of wood with a crude latch. There is no lock. Privacy is an illusion, a luxury for the rich. Your home is a single room. It is small, perhaps 10 feet by 12 feet. This one space is your bedroom, your kitchen, your dining room. It is the only sanctuary you have from the ceaseless noise of the street. But it is a poor one. The roof is your constant worry. It is made of wooden beams and covered with terracotta tiles. Many are cracked, and a few are missing entirely. When it rains, and it often does in the Roman winter, water drips down in a dozen places. You have a collection of pottery shards and a cracked bowl that you arrange on the floor to catch the worst of it, the steady plink, plink, plink. A familiar rhythm on wet nights. The water runs down the walls, feeding the dark blooms of mildew and leaving greasy, greenish stains. On the plaster, the air in your room is always damp, carrying the musty, earthy smell of rot. The floor is made of the same rough wooden planks as the door, with wide gaps between them. Through these gaps, you can hear every word, every cough, every cry from the family living below you. You also see their cooking fires through the cracks, a flickering, ominous orange glow that serves as a constant reminder of the building's greatest threat, fire. A dropped lamp, a stray spark from a brazier that is all it would take to turn this entire building, this entire neighborhood, into an inferno. The thought is always there, a low hum of anxiety beneath the surface of your daily life. There are no windows. Glass is a decadent luxury. The only opening to the outside world is a small shuttered hole in the wall. You keep it closed most of the time to keep out the stench from the street and the swarms of flies in the summer. Offers not a view, but a dizzying perspective of the building across the alley. So close, you feel you could almost reach out and touch it. The room is therefore cast in a permanent gloom, lit only by the faint light that filters through the shutter's cracks, or, when you can afford it, by a single flickering oil lamp. The lamp is a small clay saucer with a spout for a wick. It burns cheap, rancid olive oil that fills the room with a sooty, greasy smoke, coating every surface with a thin layer of grime and making your eyes water. Now, look at what you own. Your possessions can be counted on one hand against one wall. Is your bed? It is a simple wooden frame, perhaps, or more likely just a straw-filled mattress on the floor. The straw is lumpy and smells faintly of mold. It is alive with fleas and other smaller things that bite in the night. The blanket that covers it is your most valuable textile. It is coarse, heavy wool, the color of dirt, and woven with a loose, uneven hand. It is scratchy against your skin, but on a cold night, its weight is a comfort. In one corner, there is a small charcoal brazier for cooking. It is a simple clay or metal bowl, and the fuel for it is expensive. You use it sparingly. Above it, a few wooden pegs are driven into the wall. From one hangs a small, blackened cooking pot. From another, a single tunic, your only change of clothes, patched and repatched so many times that it is hard to tell where the original fabric ends and the repairs begin. You have a few tools, the instruments of your survival. A small, dull knife, its wooden handle worn smooth with use. You use it for everything: cutting bread, mending your sandals, scraping mud from your tunic. There is a wooden spoon, whittled by your own hand, for stirring your meager porridge. A single clay cup and a bowl, both chipped. And perhaps your most important possession, a large clay amphora that you use to haul water. Every morning, you must carry this heavy, awkward vessel down the 5 flights of stairs. Navigate the crowded street to the nearest public fountain. Wait in line, and then haul the sloshing precious liquid all the way back up. The weight of it strains your shoulders and back, and the constant need for water is a central, recurring labor of your existence. These are not just objects. You have a physical relationship with each one. You know the exact weight of the water amphora when it is full. You know the specific notch in the knife's handle that fits your thumb. You know the rough texture of the wool blanket by heart. You are in a constant state of maintenance, patching the tunic, sharpening the knife on a loose stone, trying to fix the leaking pot. These objects are not for comfort or for beauty. They are the blunt, unadorned tools of endurance. This small, dark, damp room is your castle. It is flawed. It is dangerous. It is barely a shelter at all, but it is yours. And every night, when you climb those stairs and latch the wooden door, a small, weary part of you is grateful to be home. This is what you do. Your life is defined by labor, a relentless cycle that begins before the sun has fully risen and ends long after it has set. The concept of a weekend, of a day of rest mandated by law, does not exist for you. You work when there is work, and you scramble to find it when there is not. For you, a day without labor is not a day of leisure. It is a day of hunger. Let us imagine you are a construction worker, one of the thousands of anonymous hands building the glorious monuments of Rome. Your day begins in the pre-dawn chill. You wake not to an alarm, but to the familiar ache in your lower back, a dull, persistent pain that never truly leaves you. You pull on your rough, dirt-stained tunic, chew on a piece of hard, dry bread left over from the night before, and begin your journey to the work site. You do not travel alone. You are part of a river of humanity flowing through the city's arteries. A tide of men with tired faces and calloused hands, all heading towards the promise of a day's wage. You find your foreman, a man whose face is a permanent mask of impatience. He lines you up with the others, his eyes scanning for any sign of weakness or illness. He doesn't know your name, he points. You are assigned your task for the day. Perhaps today you are moving scaffolding. The wooden beams are heavy, awkward, and rough with splinters. You hoist one onto your shoulder, the coarse wood digging into your skin. You and another man carry it across the chaotic construction site, your feet sinking into a mixture of mud and marble dust. You climb rickety ladders, your muscles straining, your heart pounding from the exertion and the fear of a misstep. The foreman's shouts are a constant goad, urging you to move faster, to lift more. There is no room for error, no time for rest. Or maybe today you are part of a human crane. You stand inside a massive wooden treadmill, a giant hamster wheel. For men, alongside 4 or 5 others, you walk and walk. Your bare feet push against the worn wooden slats, your combined weight turning the great wheel, which in turn powers a pulley system. Slowly, painstakingly, lifting a block of travertine marble into the air. The work is mind-numbingly monotonous, step after step, for hours on end. The only sounds are the groaning of the wooden machinery and the ragged breathing of the men beside you. Sweat pours from your body, stinging your eyes and soaking your tunic. Your thigh muscles burn, then go numb. You don't think. You don't speak. You just walk. Your mind empties, focusing only on the next step, and the next, and the next. It is a long, slow meditation on physical effort. Lunch is not a break. It is a brief refueling. You find a spot of shade, if you are lucky, and sit on a pile of rubble. You pull out the rest of your bread, perhaps with a small wedge of hard, salty cheese, or a few olives. You chew slowly, deliberately, making the meager meal last. You drink water from a skin, and it is warm and tastes of leather. You have 15 minutes. Then the foreman's whistle blows, sharp and insistent, and you are back to work. The afternoon sun is a merciless tyrant. There is no shade on the upper levels of the construction site. The light reflects off the white stone, blinding you. The heat is suffocating. You feel your strength draining away, your movements becoming slower, clumsier. This is the most dangerous part of the day, moment of inattention. A hand that slips from fatigue can mean a fall, a broken bone, or worse. You have seen it happen. A man disappears from the scaffold, a brief shout lost in the noise of the sight, and he is gone. Another body to be dragged away. The work barely pauses. You know that if you are injured, you will not be paid. You will be cast aside, another piece of broken equipment. And so, you push the exhaustion down. You force your aching body to obey. Your focus narrowed to a single point of survival. As the sun finally begins to dip towards the horizon, casting long shadows across the city, the day's labor nears its end. There is no triumphant feeling of a job well done. There is only a profound, bone-deep weariness. The foreman inspects your work, grunts, and hands you your pay, a few small bronze coins. You clutch them tightly in your hand. This is what it was all for. This is the food for tonight, the rent for the room, The journey home is a slow, shuffling procession of exhausted men. The river of humanity now flows in reverse. You climb the 5 flights of stairs to your insula, each step an act of will. You have carried wood, you have hauled stone, you have walked for miles inside a wooden wheel. Your back screams, your hands are raw with splinters and blisters, and your eyes burn from the dust and sweat. This is what you do. You do not build monuments, trade a piece of your life, a measure of your physical being, for the coins that will allow you to do it all again tomorrow. This crushing, unceasing rhythm is the truth of your existence. It is not a path to prosperity. It is a daily battle to simply stay in place, to earn the right to wake up and face another day of the same. This is what you eat. Food is not a source of pleasure for you. It is not an art form, not a celebration, not an expression of culture. Food is a problem, a daily riddle that must be solved. Your life is governed by a constant gnawing anxiety about where your next meal will come from. Hunger is not a passing sensation. It is the baseline state of your existence. A dull ache in the pit of your stomach that sharpens into a painful cramp if you fail, for even a day, to find work. The foundation of your diet, the substance that makes up the bulk of your caloric intake, is grain, but not in the form of light, airy loaves of bread. Your bread is dark, dense, and coarse. It is made from cheap whole grains, often emmer wheat or barley, poorly milled and full of grit that grinds between your teeth. Sometimes, to stretch the flour, the baker will mix in ground beans, lentils, or even sawdust. The loaf you buy from a street vendor is heavy in your hand, a small, dark brick. Its crust is hard enough to wrap your knuckles on, and the inside is dense and sour. This is what you chew on in the morning before work. A dry, tasteless fuel. Your main meal, the one you eat in the evening in your small, dark room, is almost always the same. It is a thick, warm porridge called pulse. For centuries, this was the staple food of the Roman people, the meal of legionaries and farmers. For the wealthy, it might be a delicate dish enriched with eggs, cheese, and honey. For you, it is survival in a bowl. You make it by boiling coarse grains, barley, spelt, or militant water over your charcoal brazier. You stir it with your wooden spoon until it becomes a thick, gluey paste. There is no milk, no butter. If you are lucky, you might have a pinch of salt to stir into it. Salt is a luxury, but it makes the porridge bearable. The texture of the pools is relentlessly monotonous. It is a thick, gritty sludge. It has no distinct flavor, only a vague, earthy taste of boiled grain. Sometimes, to add substance, you chop in whatever cheap vegetables you can find at the market, a handful of wilted cabbage leaves, a wrinkled turnip, a few fava beans. These additions do little for the taste, but make the meal feel more substantial, tricking your stomach into a feeling of fullness. You eat it directly from the cooking pot, scooping the warm, heavy mass into your mouth with your spoon or with a piece of your hard bread. It is not delicious. It is not satisfying in any joyful way, but it is hot, and it fills the aching void in your belly. On a good day, when you have earned a little extra, you might afford a small piece of cheese. This is not a fine, aged pecorino. It is a hard, intensely salty block, so strong that a tiny piece is enough to flavor an entire meal. You might grate a little of it into your porridge, and the sharp, savory taste is an explosion of flavor in a world of blandness. Or perhaps you buy a sausage from a street vendor. The smell is enticing, a mix of garlic, spices, and roasting meat that cuts through the usual city's stench. The sausage is cheap, made from the parts of the pig that no one else wants offal. Blood and scraps of fat, all packed into a casing. It is greasy and heavily spiced to mask the quality of the meat, but it is a welcome treat, a burst of protein and fat that your body craves. Fish is another possibility, but again, you can only afford the lowest quality. The fresh choice fish from the Bay of Naples are destined for the tables of the rich. You buy salted fish brought in barrels from Spain or North Africa. It is rock hard and smells powerfully of the sea and the salt used to preserve it. You have to soak it for hours in your precious water to make it edible, and even then, it is chewy and overwhelmingly salty. But it is something different, a change from the endless grain. Fruits are a seasonal luxury. In the summer, you might buy a handful of figs, sticky and sweet, or a few plums, but they are a fleeting pleasure. Most of the year, your only sweet is what you can find in nature. Perhaps a few berries scavenged from a bush on the city's edge. Preparing your food is a simple, grim ritual. You light your small brazier, the charcoal smoke filling your tiny room. You fetch your water. You stir your porridge. There are no recipes, no techniques, no joy in the process. It is a task, another form of labor. You eat in the near darkness, alone or with your family. The silence broken only by the sound of scraping spoons and chewing. Food is not about community or pleasure. It is about the grim calculus of survival. You eat just enough to give you the strength to work tomorrow, so you can earn the coins to buy the same meager food, to eat the same tasteless meal day after day after day. This is the great, unchanging rhythm of your sustenance, a constant battle against the encroaching emptiness. This is who you serve. You do not think in terms of an emperor, a senate, or a complex political system. These are abstractions, distant constellations of power that have little bearing on your daily life. Your world is governed by a more immediate and tangible hierarchy, a chain of obligation and fear that extends from the very ground you walk on to the man who takes your money. This power is not a system. It is a felt reality, a weight you carry on your shoulders every day. The first and most immediate authority in your life is the dominus insulae, the owner of your tenement block. You have likely never met him. He is a wealthy man, a member of the equestrian class, perhaps, who owns dozens of these poorly constructed buildings across the city. He sees them not as homes for people, but as assets on a ledger, investments that must produce a return. His will is exercised through his agent, the building manager or overseer. This is the man you deal with. He is often no better off than you, a freedman, perhaps, whose own livelihood depends on his ability to extract rent from the tenants. His face is a fixture in your life, appearing at your door at the beginning of each month with an open palm and an impatient expression. The rent for your single, squalid room is exorbitant, a significant portion of your meager earnings. There is no contract, no lease, no legal protection. If you cannot pay, you are out. It is that simple. He will not hesitate to evict you, to have your few possessions thrown into the street and the door barred behind you. The fear of this man, of his monthly visit, is a constant, low-level hum of anxiety. Every coin you earn is mentally divided. This part for food, this part for the overseer. He holds the power of shelter and homelessness over you, and you both know it. He is your most immediate lord. Then there is the foreman at the worksite. He is your master from sunrise to sunset. He holds the power of employment. As you stand in the crowd of laborers in the morning, your fate for the day rests in his gaze. He can choose you or the man next to you. His decision is arbitrary, based on a whim, on whether he likes your face, on whether you have ever crossed him. During the day, his word is law. He dictates the pace of your work, the risks you must take. He can dock your pay for perceived laziness or dismiss you for a single mistake. As you fear his anger, the sharp bark of his voice, you learn to make yourself invisible, to work hard enough to be noticed as productive, but not so much as to stand out. You offer him a forced deference, a nod of the head, an averted gaze. It is a small daily performance of submission, a ritual you must perform to secure the coins you need to pay the other man you serve. Beyond these immediate figures, there is the amorphous power of the state, which you experience not as protection, but as extraction. You see the urban cohorts, the city's police force, patrolling the streets. They are not there to protect you. They are there to protect the property of the wealthy and to quell any signs of unrest. They are large men in armor, and you avoid their eyes. An accidental bump, a misunderstood word, could lead to a beating or an arrest. Justice is a commodity you cannot afford. The courts are for men who can hire rhetoricians, for men who have patrons. For you, any interaction with the law is a disaster. And then there are the taxes. Even you, at the very bottom of the economic ladder, must pay. There is a poll tax, a simple tax on existing. There are indirect taxes baked into the price of everything you buy: the salt, the grain, the cheap wine. You don't see the tax collector himself, but you feel his presence in the lightness of your purse. You know that a portion of your back-breaking labor goes to fund the grand buildings you will never enter, and the lavish lifestyles of men you will never meet. This entire structure is built on a foundation of implicit threat. The overseer's power is the threat of the street. The foreman's power is the threat of starvation. The state's power is the threat of physical violence. You are caught in the middle, serving all of them. Your relationship to this power is one of weary, resentful compliance. You feel the injustice of it in your bones, the crushing weight of a system designed to keep you exactly where you are. There is no ladder to climb, no path to advancement. There is only the endless obligation to serve the men above you, a chain of dependence that defines the very shape of your life. It is the price you pay for your small, precarious existence in the glorious city of Rome. This is what you fear. Your world is filled with tangible dangers: the risk of fire, the threat of eviction, the possibility of injury at your work. But these are not your only fears. Your psychological landscape is crowded with unseen forces, with abstract threats that are, in many ways, more terrifying than any foreman or landlord. You live in a world where misfortune is not random, but an act of malice, where the air itself can be your enemy, and where the dead do not always rest peacefully. Your primary explanation for sickness and disease is not the germ, but miasma. You believe that illness is carried on the air, a bad air that rises from swamps, from decaying refuse, from stagnant water, and from the bodies of the dead. This belief is a sensory one. When you walk past a pile of rotting garbage or a clogged sewer, you can smell the danger. The foul stench is the physical manifestation of the disease it carries. You hold your breath or cover your mouth and nose with a cloth, a small, futile gesture against an invisible enemy. A fever, a cough, the flux of the bowels. These are not caused by microscopic organisms, but by breathing in the wrong air at the wrong time. This makes the very environment of your neighborhood, with its constant filth and oppressive smells, a source of profound and constant anxiety. Every foul odor carries with it the threat of death. Then there is the fear of the malus oculus, the evil eye. You believe that envy is a powerful, destructive force that can be projected from a person's gaze, whether intentionally or not. Person who praises your child too effusively, who stares too long at your meager meal, or who seems to covet your one good tunic could, with their look alone, inflict harm. Their envy could cause your child to fall sick, your food to spoil, or your tunic to tear. This superstition governs your social interactions. You are wary of praise and suspicious of strangers. You learn to be guarded, to downplay any small piece of good fortune, to protect yourself and your family. You rely on charms and rituals. Perhaps you wear an amulet, a fashionum, often in the shape of a phallus, a potent symbol believed to frighten away evil spirits and deflect the evil eye. You might hang one over the door to your room. You teach your children to make a specific gesture, the monofico, the fig sign, with the thumb clasped between the index and middle fingers, if they feel they are being looked at with envy. These are not casual beliefs. They are essential tools for navigating a dangerous world. They are your armor against the unseen malice of others. You also fear the spirits of the dead. Not all of them, of course. You honor the spirits of your ancestors, your lares and pinities, with small offerings at a tiny household shrine. But you live in terror of the lemures and larvae, the angry, restless ghosts of those who died violently or who were not given proper burial rites. You believe these spirits wander the earth, consumed by bitterness, seeking to torment the living. They are the things that make noises in the night, the cold draft you feel in your sealed room, the source of nightmares. They can bring madness and disease. There are specific festivals, like the Lemuria in May, where the head of the household must perform rituals to purify the home and appease these wandering spirits, walking barefoot through the house at midnight, spitting black beans from his mouth to feed the ghosts and drive them away. Misfortuna, drop tool that breaks. A sudden illness A string of days without work is rarely seen as just bad luck. It is a sign. It is a punishment from a god you have neglected or offended. Did you forget to leave an offering? Did you speak a god's name in vain? Or perhaps it is a curse, a defixio, laid upon you by an enemy. You know that for a small price, a scribe will write a curse on a lead tablet, invoking the gods of the underworld to bind an enemy, to ruin their health, their business, their life. The tablet is then folded, pierced with a nail, and dropped in a well or a grave to deliver it to the chthonic deities. The knowledge that anyone a rival for a job, a neighbor with whom you have argued, could do this to you is a source of deep paranoia. Your world is a web of invisible connections, spiritual dangers that lurk behind every interaction. To combat these threats, you rely on a folk wisdom of remedies and rituals, a poultice of chewed leaves for a wound, a specific incantation muttered to ward off a headache, a small offering of wine poured onto the ground before a journey. These beliefs and practices form a complex, invisible scaffolding that helps you make sense of a chaotic and often cruel world. They provide an explanation for suffering and offer a small sense of control, a feeling that you can, through your actions and precautions, ward off the ever-present dangers that lurk in the shadows, in the air, and in the envious eyes of your fellow man. This is how you rest. But rest is not a guarantee. Night in your world is not a gentle reprieve from the day. It is a different kind of challenge, a descent into a darkness so profound it feels like a physical presence. The departure of the sun does not bring peace, but a new set of anxieties and discom. As twilight fades, the familiar sounds of the datha hammers, the saws, the hawker's cries are replaced by the sounds of the night. The rumbling of the forbidden supply carts begins, a low, constant vibration that you feel in the floor of your room. The taverns on the ground floor of the insulae spill their patrons into the streets. You hear their drunken shouts, their raucous laughter, their sudden, violent quarrels. From the darkness below comes the sound of a scuffle, a sharp cry of pain, then silence. You do not look out. It is not your business. The night has its own brutal rules. Inside your single room, the darkness is absolute. Your small, smoky oil lamp provides only a tiny pool of flickering, unreliable light, barely enough to see the walls of your small space. The oil is a precious commodity, and you cannot afford to burn it for long. Once the evening meal of poles is finished, you extinguish the flame, plunging the room into a thick, suffocating blackness. You cannot see your hand in front of your face. This is a darkness that erases the world, leaving you with only your own thoughts and the sounds that filter up from the street and through the thin walls. The cold seeps in. Even on a summer night, the stone and brick of the building radiates a damp chill. In winter, the cold is a predator. It finds every crack in the walls, every gap in the roof tiles. Your single, coarse wool blanket is your only defense against it. You huddle beneath it, pulling it up to your chin, your breath misting in the frigid air. You do not sleep alone. Privacy is the ultimate luxury, one you cannot even conceive of. If you have a family, you all share this one room, this one floor. space. You sleep huddled together for warmth, a tangle of limbs on the straw mattress. You are intimately aware of every cough, every snore, every restless turn of your sleeping family members. The air grows thick and stale with the breath of several people in a small, unventilated space. There is no personal space, no moment of quiet solitude. Your rest is a communal affair, a shared struggle against the cold and the dark. Your sleep itself is different from the modern conception of a long, unbroken rest. You experience what later historians would call first and second sleep. You go to bed shortly after dusk, exhausted from the day's labor. You fall into a deep, heavy sleep for several hours. But then, somewhere in the middle of the night, around midnight, you wake up. This is not seen as insomnia or a disorder. It is a normal, expected part of the night. This waking period, this watch, is a strange, quiet interlude in the heart of the darkness. The city outside has fallen into a relative lull. The drunks have stumbled home. The carts are between deliveries. For an hour or two, you are awake in a silent world. What do you do in this time? You might simply lie there, listening to the breathing of your family. You might think about the day to come, about the rent, about the ache in your back. This is a time for quiet anxieties to surface. Or it might be a time for prayer, for murmuring a quiet appeal to your household gods, your Lares, for their protection. If you are with your spouse, this might be the only time for intimacy, a brief, quiet connection in the shared darkness. During this time, and during your sleep, dreams hold a powerful significance. They are not merely the random firings of a resting brain. Dreams are portals. They are messages from the gods, visitations from the spirits of the dead, or omens of the future. A dream of falling might foretell a financial loss. A dream of clear water might be a sign of good health. You analyze your dreams upon waking, searching for their hidden meaning, for clues about how to navigate the coming day. A particularly vivid or disturbing dream can leave you with a sense of dread that clings to you long after the sun has risen. After an hour or two of this quiet wakefulness, you feel the pull of sleep again. You settle back down into your straw mattress, pulling the scratchy blanket around you, and descend into your second sleep. This sleep is often lighter, carrying you through the remainder of the night until the first gray light of dawn begins to filter through the cracks in the shutter, signaling that the cycle must begin all over again. This is your rest. It is a fractured, shared, and often anxious state. It is a retreat into a profound darkness, punctuated by the sounds of a dangerous city and the weight of your own fears. It is not a peaceful recharge, but simply a necessary pause, a brief cessation of labor before the demands of the next day. Pull you back into the light. This is the breaking point. Your life is a series of small, manageable crises. A day without work, a leaking roof, a bout of fever. You have learned to endure these, but then comes the great crisis, the event that shatters the fragile routines of your survival and plunges your world into chaos. It is not a single dramatic moment, but a slow creeping dread that builds until it consumes everything. For you, living in your flimsy tenement in the heart of Rome, the ultimate crisis is fire. It begins not with a roar, but with a smell, a strange, acrid scent on the night air, different from the usual smoky haze of the city. Then a sound, a rising murmur of panicked voices from the street below, a sound that cuts through the usual drunken din. You open your shutter and see it. The sky to the south, which should be black, is glowing with a sickening, flickering orange light. Glow is not distant. It seems to be just a few blocks away, and it is growing brighter. Fear, cold and sharp, pierces the weariness in your bones. Fire is the demon that haunts every resident of the insula. You have seen small fires before, a single building consumed, quickly contained. But this is different. You can feel a heat on the wind, and with it come the sounds of cracking timber, and a low, hungry roar that seems to shake the very air. Panic erupts in your building. Doors slam open. People shout from the stairwells. The dread is contagious, spreading faster than the flames. Your first thought is not of the city, but of your room, your family, your few possessions. The water amphora, the blanket, the cooking pot. What can you save? What do you take? The decision is paralyzing. You grab your children, your spouse. You snatch the wool blanket from the mattress. There is no time for anything else. You join the torrent of humanity flooding down the narrow, dark staircase. People are shoving, screaming, their faces illuminated by the terrifying orange light that now fills the courtyard. You burst out into the street, and the scene is one of true pandemonium. The air is thick with smoke and burning embers that drift down like malevolent snow, catching in your hair and clothes. The heat is intense, a physical blow. The noise is deafening, the roar of the fire, the crash of collapsing buildings, and the collective shriek of thousands of people caught in a trap. The rules of your world are broken. The familiar streets have become a death trap. The fire is not moving like a slow flood. It is leaping from one wooden insula to the next, driven by the wind, consuming the tinder-dry 7-story buildings as if they were kindling. You see a building you have passed every day of your life simply fold in on itself, disappearing into a fountain of sparks and flame. Your only goal is to move, to get away, to reach one of the open spaces of Market Square, the edge of the Forum, any place where the fire cannot find fuel, but the streets are clogged with a terrified, surging mob. People are carrying what they could save: a mattress, a cage of birds, a crying child. Others carry nothing, their faces blank with shock. You are swept along by the crowd, a piece of human debris in a river of panic. You hold tight to your family's hands, the fear of being separated as great as the fear of the fire itself. The fire creates its own weather. The wind howls through the narrow canyons of the streets, feeding the flames. The smoke is so thick, you cannot see more than a few feet ahead. Your lungs burn, your eyes stream with tears. The familiar geography of your neighborhood is gone, replaced by a shifting landscape of fire and ruin. An alley that was a shortcut is now a wall of flame. A street you thought was safe is blocked by a collapsed building. For days, you live as a refugee in your own city. You find shelter with thousands of others in the public parks on the campus Martis. There is no food, no clean water, The authorities, the urban cohorts, are overwhelmed, focused on protecting the stone monuments and the homes of the rich, not the slums. You see the worst of humanity. People looting abandoned homes, fighting over a loaf of bread. But you also see moments of incredible grace. A stranger sharing a sip of water. A mother comforting a lost child. People huddling together for warmth and comfort against the horror of what they have witnessed. When the fire finally burns itself out, after days of destruction, you are left with nothing. You dare to walk back towards your neighborhood, but your neighborhood no longer exists. Where your building once stood, there is now just a blackened, smoldering field of rubble. Your street, your home, your few possessions, your entire world, all of it has been reduced to ash and charcoal. You have survived, but you have lost everything. You have no home, no tools, no money. You are standing in the ruins of your life. The slow, creeping dread has been replaced by a vast, hollow emptiness. The breaking point has come and gone, and you are left to face the terrifying question that hangs in the smoky air. What happens now? This is what you believe. Your spiritual life is not a matter of quiet personal faith, studied from a sacred text. It is a dense, complex, and deeply practical framework of rituals, obligations, and relationships with the divine powers that govern every aspect of your existence. Belief is not a comfort you turn to in times of trouble. It is a constant, active negotiation with an unseen world. A set of duties as real as your work and as necessary as your food. Your religion is fundamentally polytheistic and transactional. You believe in a vast pantheon of gods and spirits, each with their own specific domain. There are the great gods of the state Jupiter, Juno, Mars, whose grand temples you see from a distance. You know they are powerful, the protectors of Rome itself, and you respect them. You watch the massive public festivals in their honor, the great processions, and the public sacrifices from the edge of the crowd. These are spectacles of power, meant to ensure the Pax Diorum, the peace of the gods, for the entire city. They feel distant, like the emperor himself. They are not the gods you speak to every day, your most intimate. Divine relationships are with the gods of your home and your daily life. In a small niche in the wall of your room, you have a tiny shrine, a lararium. Here reside your household gods, the Lares, who are the guardian spirits of your family, and the Penates, the protectors of your storeroom and your sustenance. They are not grand, omnipotent beings. They are your spiritual family. Every day, you acknowledge them. You leave them a small offering from your meager mila crumb of bread, a drop of wine if you have it. You speak to them, asking for their protection over your home and your children. You believe their presence keeps your family safe from harm, that they watch over you as you sleep. Forgetting them is a grave risk, an invitation for misfortune to enter your home. Your belief is also highly specialized. When you plant a seed, you pray to Ceres. When you fear a fire, you pray to Vulcan. If your child is sick, you might make an offering to Salus, the goddess of health. If you are about to begin a journey, you leave a coin at a shrine to Mercury. This is not a matter of deep theological reflection. It is practical. You need a specific outcome, so you appeal to the specific power that controls it. Prayer is not a conversation. It is a contract. The formula is crucial. Duute I give, so that you might give. You approach the gods like a supplicant approaching a powerful magistrate. You must be respectful. State your name and clearly articulate your request. You then make a vow, promising a specific offering in return if the god grants your wish. Great Jupiter, you might pray before a risky job. If you see me safely through this day, I will sacrifice a portion of my earnings at your altar. If the prayer is answered, you are bound by this vow. To break it is to invite divine wrath. This makes your relationship with the gods one of careful, constant bookkeeping. Sin in your world is not primarily a matter of personal morality or a stain on your soul. Sin, or pietas violata, is the failure to perform your religious duties correctly. It is neglecting an offering, performing a ritual improperly, or breaking a vow. Such failures disrupt the pax deorum and can bring punishment not just upon you, but upon your family or your community. The gods are not necessarily concerned with whether you are a good person in a moral sense. They are concerned with whether you have given them their due respect and their proper offerings. The priests you encounter, the pontifices, or the attendants at a local shrine are not spiritual guides or moral counselors. They are experts, technicians of the sacred. They know the correct formulas for prayer, the proper way to perform a sacrifice, the right calendar days for certain rituals. You consult them not for spiritual comfort, but for their technical knowledge to ensure your contract with the gods is correctly executed. This spiritual structure is both a comfort and a burden. It provides an explanation for a chaotic world. When something bad happens, it is because a divine power was displeased. This framework gives you a sense of agency, a belief that you can influence your fate through correct ritual action. But it is also a source of constant anxiety. Have you done enough? Have you forgotten a god? You made a mistake in your prayer? The weight of these obligations is heavy. Your spiritual life is another form of labor, a constant and necessary effort to maintain balance with the powerful, unseen forces that surround you, ensuring that your small, fragile life continues to be tolerated by the gods who rule the universe, so you have seen it. The grime, the noise, the labor, the fear, the constant grinding pressure of a life at the bottom of the world's greatest city. A life lived in a dark room on a diet of bland porridge, under the thumb of masters and the fear of unseen forces. A life where the greatest imaginable crisis of fire, a plague could erase your entire existence in an instant, leaving not even a memory behind. And so we must arrive at the final quiet question. Not how did you die? Because the answers are too simple and too grim. Disease, an accident, starvation, childbirth, 1,000 other small, unrecorded tragedies. The more profound question, the one that hangs in the air after all of this, is this: how did you endure? Why did you not revolt? When every day was a struggle for survival against a system perfectly designed to crush your spirit, to reduce you to a mere cog in its vast and different machine. Why did you not simply lie down and give up? Or why did you not take up a broken brick and join a riot to burn it all down in a final, glorious act of self-destruction. There were riots, of course, for bread, for games, brief, violent flashes of desperation. But they were not the answer. They were quickly and brutally suppressed. The true answer to how you endured is quieter and infinitely more powerful. Not of action. You did not revolt with fire and steel because your rebellion was more fundamental. Your rebellion was in the act of survival itself. Your victory was not in overthrowing the master, but in raising a child in that single dark room. It was in teaching that child your name, in humming a lullaby to them in the dead of night, in sharing your meager crust of bread so they could eat. In a world that saw you as disposable, the act of creating and nurturing the next generation was the ultimate act of defiance. We will continue. It was in the shared joke with the man working beside you on the scaffold, a brief, knowing glance that said, "Yes, this is absurd, but we are in it together." It was in the taste of a single stolen fig, a burst of sweetness in a lifetime of blandness. It was in listening to a musician playing a pipe in a filthy alley and allowing yourself, for just a moment, to be moved by the melody. It was in the telling of a story, the sharing of a song, the sacred and unbreakable bonds of family and friendship. They were the weapons you used to fight it. You endured because you had to, but you also endured because you found meaning not in changing the world, but in inhabiting your small corner of it with as much dignity as you could muster. Its way through rock, it was a quiet, stubborn, and profoundly human persistence. The great irony is that the emperors, the senators, and the generals, the men whose names are recorded in the history books, are all gone. Their power, which seemed so absolute, has vanished. Their stone monuments are magnificent ruins, tourist attractions visited by people from a world they could never have imagined. But you won, not in your lifetime perhaps, but your legacy, your bloodline, the quiet resilience you passed on to your children, and they too theirs survived. It flowed like a patient underground river beneath the grand crumbling edifice of Rome. It is a lineage of endurance that always found in the grand narrative of power and conquest. More often, it is found in the quiet, desperate, and beautiful struggle to simply continue, to hold on to your humanity in the face of overwhelming pressure, to find light in the darkness. That was your strength. That was your rebellion. And it was, in the end, the only victory that truly mattered.